me.
When you and I had originally started talking about, what are ways to cultivate resilience?
Yeah.
Which obviously leads to the question, what is resilience? What does that mean? And we like to talk in terms of frequencies, right? Like, how do you turn the knob to find that space on the dial where you've hit a space of resilience in this case?
Yeah.
And I remember Mama Joycey brought in Jello, and we were talking about like the soles of the shoes made of Jello, right? And like, what would that feel like to walk on something that is buoyant, something that allows you to be flexible, right? And then there was this big realization of, oh my God, flexibility is like this huge, huge part of resilience. And that's kind of where even the concept of floating comes from, because there's that coach pep talk. What are you going to do? Sink or swim?
Right.
What are you going to do? Sink or swim? And it's like, oh God, I have to swim, and it's like, I don't want to swim. I don't have the energy to swim. Like, what do I? Yeah. And it's not sink or swim, it's not actually the only choice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to be able to ride on the surface of something, be held by something?
Yeah. I love that metaphor, that idea that you had about the like being held by the water, the surface of the water, the surface of the waves, like instead of fighting it, like letting it be the thing that you can like
because emotions are very watery, the quality of emotions, it's watery, and we get scared of drowning, we really do, by our emotions. People are constantly using that metaphor, like, I feel like I'm drowning, right? I'm drowning in my sorrow. And can we float in our sorrow? Can we appreciate what that's offering us and what that's teaching us? Can we find a sense that, it doesn't have to overwhelm our nervous system, but to know our nervous systems are equipped to feel that feeling. You're not going to die, even though it triggers that feeling of, I'm going to die, like, I'm going to die from this loss. I'm not going to survive this. Like, no, you are, and you're having an appropriate emotional response to something that's happening. So can I float on being able to understand what's the container, what's the emotion, pause and recognize what it is that you're feeling, and accept that it's happening.
And I feel like it's so easy to sort of understand and like dig it and just be like, oh yeah, I got it. When it's like, what happens if you're caught in a rip current? Like, what happens if you're like too far out at sea? Like, there's a lot of like, what do you do in harsh seas? You like learn how to float. But like, I teach my kid, we teach, like, if if you're at the beach and you're too far out and you get tired, you turn over and float until you have enough like energy to keep swimming. And it's like, oh yeah, of course, right? Because it's like, we can do anything. Like, anything is possible to most degrees if we don't get too tired and quit like before the miracle, right? Like, there's that meme that's like, don't quit before the miracle. But like most things are survivable. Like, we can survive most things if we like can just like keep our heads above water. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday about like transgenerational trauma, like the sort of like legacy of trauma. And this, this line was, trauma rigidifies families, right? And like death and ultimate trauma like rigidifies families, but rigidifies us. Like, it's that, because it's it's like, you need to survive it, right? Like, we have to survive the death, we have to survive. So it's like, we all sort of know that you can't like live in fight or flight for very long. I mean, I did it a pretty long time. I would say I probably lived in fight or flight like for a good 17 years. I mean, a really long time, like mostly in that space, but like, I'd rather not. It's probably not ideal,
Well, so, most people actually do live in that space.
Right.
And, for me, once I learned really the physiology that we have that accompanies our behavioral opportunities as human beings in these bodies.
Yeah.
I have something that I could trust, that's myself, that I could rest into.
Yeah.
And the understanding of it also is a therapeutic practice because it pulls us from being just stuck in that emotional place and being into more of a balanced, oh, there's logic here. Oh, there's actually some direction and some
Agency.
science and
Yeah.
some, that's where agency comes in. That's how we learn to steer the ship. You know, that's how we learn the mechanisms that we have to steer the ship. We're starting to, in mainstream pop psychology, learn about our nervous systems and talk about, you know, we're all in fight or flight all the time. And we're starting to understand what the parasympathetic is all about, which is the sense of floating. It's that rest, it's that digestion.
Yeah.
It's, oh, I could take this in. Oh, I could feel this and be replenished by something and keep going and find that buoyancy. It's shifting between those two nervous systems that we have. But
Yeah.
most of us don't know that one of our nervous systems is for rest and digest. We are constantly just reacting to things all the time and treading water and exhausted. And, you know, it doesn't have to be.